Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman.
And I'm Mike Messina.
And this is the weekly movie Throwdown, where each week we take two films with something in common and talk through which one is better. This week, it's a throwdown between Jane Austen's Emma adaptations. 1995's Clueless, directed by Amy Heckerling, goes up against Emma with a period from 2020, directed by Autumn de Wilde. And we're going to get into that conversation in a little bit. But before we do, Mike, any wins of the week that you want to shout out?
No wins of the week this week. I went to go see The End of Oak Street, which you mentioned that you had seen the week before. And I thought it was fine. I came to a realization, though, that dinosaurs are over for me. Like Jurassic Park has just killed the dinosaur movie for me. There's no real thrill anymore watching people get eaten by dinosaurs. Or chased by dinosaurs, or menaced by dinosaurs. I'm just kind of done with it a little bit. But it was a fine movie. I didn't hate it, but I realized in that moment that I'm kind of just bored with the whole thing.
I think dinosaurs were over for me with Land of the Lost. That was where it started and ended, because I am not a fan of dinosaur movies. Although I did like End of Oak Street. Okay, well, yeah, that's a quick win of the week. Lukewarm win, maybe a draw of the week.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything. I will shout out the new Phoebe Bridgers album, Lost Weekend, which I'm like just listening to over and over again, and I think is really, really good. Very excited to see her next month, and I've been looking forward to this album for a long time, so I'm very happy to shout that out. But nothing film-wise to mention this week. Although, really quick, because I tried to will it into existence last week, what did you think of Lanterns this week?
Oh, yeah, I actually was able to watch that episode. I liked it. So let's just say, as we've said before, Green Lantern's not exactly my favorite superhero, and I thought the Green Lantern movie was god awful.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of like. And I don't love space stuff. So taking Green Lantern and grounding it on Earth is actually right in my wheelhouse. I think the two actors are fantastic. I really enjoyed watching them together. So it was a win for me. And I will also say, without spoiling anything, I 100% knew that is exactly what was going to happen, because the whole point is there's only one Green Lantern to take care of a galaxy. Of course. So, the idea is baked in. So, yeah, like shocking. It's not shocking. That's pretty much how it has to be. It's just a question of when or how it transpires. But other than that, not surprising.
Yeah, you can see it coming. But it was a lot of fun. I feel like I hope it's going to get better. The time jumps are interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah. Pretty cool so far. I
am starting to wonder if Aaron Pierre is getting typecast, but it's fine. It's typecasting doesn't bother me, so I'm okay with it. But
yeah, well, I'd like to see more Aaron Pierre as mid-sized sedan, like he was in Old. Remember that?
That's
like
true.
The best rapper name ever.
Yeah.
All right, those are our wins of the week. Pretty short segment this week. Let's move on to our main conversation. 1995's Clueless versus 2020's Emma. You big Jane Austen fan?
No, I am not. But I did think it was interesting, kind of taking this, because Emma's obviously a classic story, and I was intrigued by people making period adaptations of Jane Austen versus trying to take it and make it into something modern, which isn't necessarily new. People have done this with a lot of old works, even Shakespeare and all, obviously. But I thought this would be a fun one to look at. And also just wanted a reason to really do something with Amy Heckerling, who I just wanted to talk about in general. So I wanted to see this, and hadn't seen the new adaptation of Emma. I think we both saw the one with Gwyneth Paltrow back in the 90s.
I never did.
And I don't have much memory of it, to be honest. But I will say, without spoiling anything, that my feelings about 19th century period dramas, it's pretty much what I expected.
Okay. See, that's interesting, because I saw it. I'd never seen the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma, and you might argue that that's a better match here because it comes out a year after Clueless, essentially telling the same story in the same, not the same time period, but the films are released in the same time period. Another good matchup might have been 96 Emma versus 2020 Emma, but
Well,
I like where we landed.
yeah, I will just say this too. That period was a huge period for Emma, by the way, because there was the Clueless and there was the Gwyneth Paltrow version, but there was also a BBC version that came out in '96 as well that was really well
Yeah.
regarded. So I'm not really sure what was happening in the mid '90s where there was a huge interest in making Jane Austen adaptations, but yeah, it was a moment for Emma.
And it carries on too, because Bridget Jones's Diary is kind of a modern spin on Pride and Prejudice. So yeah, she really kind of captured the zeitgeist for a while there and continues to today. I think there's actually I don't know if it's still on, but there's been a BBC show adaptation of Emma that I saw on Amazon. So I mean, there are so many stories, right? And like retellings of these classics. You see it with like Dracula. You see it with anything from way back in the day, like 18th century stuff. It can continue to be rehashed and reimagined in new ways. And that's what I like about the pairing that we're doing is that Clueless is completely present day. And Emma, while set in, the time of Jane Austen, I kind of see it as a piece with Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette in that it's in that period, but it still feels very contemporary to me. It doesn't have that same soundtrack like Marie Antoinette had, but I felt like 2020 when I watched Emma, and I think that's the direction. I think it's Anya Taylor-Joy. It's hard to place her in time. I mean, and it's very hard to find actors who these days look like they belong in a period piece. And I don't know if she belongs in a period piece or like a future piece or what.
Yeah.
She kind of spans like generations with her look. So
It's funny you
that's
say
interesting.
that because as I was watching Emma, I've been watching Lucky on Apple TV at
Yeah.
the same time. So watching those two things back to back is actually pretty jarring
Yeah,
because
it is.
even within Lucky, I mean, she's kind of a chameleon who keeps changing throughout the show.
Mhm.
So it just shows that her range is really vast. I think that the two leads, honestly, with Anya Taylor-Joy and Mia Goth, it is a fascinating pairing. One because they are friends in real life, which is kind of cool, and you can see there's a camaraderie between them. But they also, yeah, they both of them can kind of do anything. That they'll pop
Yeah.
up in this period piece, and then they're both doing completely different things. I mean, she's in Mad Max, and Mia Goth is obviously doing the Maxine and Pearl and other horror movie stuff. So it's something to see them both in a period drama together.
It is, and I have a lot more to say about both of them. But before we talk about them, let's talk about Clueless, just because, well, it comes first, and it really, it's kind of tipping our hand a little bit here, but the cultural footprint of Clueless is like undeniable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really unbelievable. Um, what's your take on Clueless?
My take on Clueless was going into it. I remember not thinking too much of it. Everybody liked it in the '90s. The soundtrack was good, but I hadn't watched it in years and hadn't given it much thought. And I was pleasantly surprised at how enjoyable it was. Um, and I think that okay, I think Batman and Robin had a huge effect on how we think about almost everyone that was in those movies.
Yeah,
And I feel like after Batman and Robin, Alicia Silverstone became a non-entity in my opinion. I just stopped thinking about her.
yeah.
So going back and watching
So did
Clueless,
Hollywood.
yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, isn't it? Funny that somehow she's the one that gets killed out of Batman and Robin as well. It's like
Yeah.
why just her? A lot of other people should have had their careers ended by that. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But going back and watching Clueless, it is a revelation about how good she is in this movie and how she's able to encompass confidence and insecurity and almost acting like a grown up but also being a child and handling all of those things almost within the same scenes, she's really incredible in it. And I don't know if you read this, but the person who almost got the part was Reese Witherspoon. That she was up for it and she almost got it, but Amy Heckerling really thought that Alicia Silverstone was it, and she was 100% right. But I love the idea that it took a decade, but Reese Witherspoon ended up playing a character like Cher anyway.
Right.
So I think that's just kind of fun that clearly she was fit for the role. It just wasn't the role yet, and then she used it a decade later and was able to springboard it into something much bigger for herself.
I'm with you 100%. It sounds like your rediscovery of Alicia Silverstone is kind of how I felt last week with Renee Zellweger and Jerry Maguire, in that she kind of was there for me, but I didn't really pay attention, and I didn't she just didn't register as much. But going back and watching Clueless this week, Alicia Silverstone is so charming and just so captivating. And yeah, you're right. Like a revelation. Like it was really amazing to see her, and especially so early in her career, because she had done a few things to this point, but to come into I wouldn't call it a big production. It was like a $10 million budget, but it's a studio picture. And for her to be put in that role and to handle it so well is really impressive.
Yeah,
I had a lot of fun watching her in this.
And we have to say that goes to Amy Heckerling as well, because she was apparently Alicia Silverstone was dealing with insecurities on the set too. She was leading this picture. She's in almost every scene, and she was feeling a bit like a fraud. And I think that it's the director that not only gave her the space, but allowed her to find the confidence to do the role. And so I think that is credit to the director as well. But allow me a side tangent, because we were talking about going back and watching Clueless, and you talked about Renee Zellweger last week. So what I love doing sometimes on YouTube is going back and watching old live clips of bands that I'm kind of sick of, or songs that I'm sick of. Because in classic rock, there are just these songs that are considered the canon, and they get played all the time, and you're sick of them. And like, if I never hear "Stairway to Heaven" again, like, I'll be fine with that. So things like that. But Freebird, which is a song that everybody kind of knows and no one really thinks about all that much anymore because it's just everywhere. And Cameron Crowe used it at the end of Elizabethtown. But anyway, I found an old video of Lynyrd Skynyrd doing Freebird the year that Freebird came out, which was like the early 70s, 73, something like that. And I watched this live performance, and I was completely blown away by it. And it made me rethink about Freebird in every way. So I recommend that everyone kind of go back and watch these songs in the moment that the bands were still young and hungry and really getting at it. And it really helps you to understand why those songs became as big as they are. I think that you get so far removed from it and you don't think about it. But going back and watching old live clips when these bands were young and they were getting after it and the energy was so high, it really makes you reassess these songs that you're bored with. I really recommend doing that every once in a while. Just going back and thinking of an old song you're sick of, go find a live YouTube clip if it still exists, which it probably does, and see what you think about it. I have a lot of fun doing that.
So you're saying that Clueless is Alicia Silverstone's Freebird?
I might be. I think I may be saying that. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. I think it is just such an important film for her. And I know you want to say a few things about Amy Heckerling, and for her too, really, this film is sort of like kind of a comeback in a way, because she was sort of stuck doing European Vacation, which she didn't really want to do, and just didn't get a lot of second chances like women don't really do in Hollywood.
Right, fine. You brought it up, so I'm going to get on my soapbox now. The more I think about this, the angrier it makes me. First of all, I will defend Johnny Dangerously to the death. Okay? I don't give a shit what anybody says.
I was waiting. Yeah.
That movie's fantastic. And she actually said that she believes that the reason it didn't do well is because a lot of people didn't understand the genre that was being spoofed. Like the gangster movie didn't really exist anymore in the early 80s. And so they didn't have a frame of reference for how good it was spoofing like 50s gangster movies. And
Yeah.
part of me agrees with that, but I'm sorry, that's a stacked cast. That movie's funny as hell. I have always liked it. I don't care what anybody says. So even with that being said, yeah, Amy Heckerling's career is a perfect example of how difficult it is for women to have succeeded in that period of time. Just step back and think for a second. You have a director who made kind of the seminal teenage movie of the 1980s, and then she made the seminal teenage movie of the 90s. I mean, she did both of those things. And in between, she made Look Who's Talking, which people made crap on, but was one of the highest grossing movies the year that it came out. And yet she's not regarded as one of the top comedy directors. She's not considered someone who should be able to greenlight projects. That she made a movie that ended up getting put straight to video that couldn't get released. I mean, this makes no sense to me, and I find it infuriating. I mean, we talked about Catherine Bigelow too, which is another thing because she was really playing in, the sandbox of action movies, and that's a whole other road she has to go. But the fact that Amy Heckerling couldn't get more work as a comedy director after showing what she can do, I just find that ridiculous. I really do. Like, I can't even grasp it.
Yeah, she went through a lot of ups and downs, and do you know like the autobiographical bit about Look Who's Talking with her?
No, I don't.
So she took European vacation as just a paycheck because she was pregnant and she was a single mom, and she was going to be, she was going to need money to live with her baby. And so when you go into Look Who's Talking, the Kirstie Alley character is someone who's kind of in love with a client who's never going to leave his wife and gets her pregnant and she has a baby. That's what happened to Amy Heckerling. And the father, it turns out, is Harold Ramis. So Harold Ramis fathered a child with her, but was never going to leave his wife. And then she just put that into Look Who's Talking. And that kind of like turned things upside down for her a little bit. But getting back to Clueless, this started as a TV show for Fox, and it never got off the ground. And she didn't plan to retell Emma, but it much in like the way she puts a microscope on like that Southern California culture in Fast Times, she kind of does it here as well. And it sort of turns into Emma, basically. Like she didn't realize she was writing Emma, but she was. And it went from studio to studio, but the reason it went from like studio to studio is because she was not going to compromise on it, which is a thing I love about her. And it almost feels like Jane Austen-esque, her trajectory with the films that she's trying to make. I was reading a little bit about Jane Austen, and I mean, it's common knowledge that women could not author books in the 18th century. And reading about her publishing process was like infuriating because the way it worked is, now we give out in advance. And then if the author doesn't make enough money to like pay out the advance, then the publisher takes the loss. Back then, the author was on the hook for that. So the publisher paid the costs to get it printed. And if the sales weren't high enough to pay back the advance, the author had to pay the publisher. So what happened with one of her books, I don't think it was Emma, it might have been Sense and Sensibility, is that a publisher took it on, but he published it on super expensive paper, which you could probably like relate to this, and put it at like $50 a copy. So she wouldn't make money off it and then had to pay him. So like completely just against a woman publishing it and basically trying to get money from her. And then the other route you could go with publishing was that you would just sell the copyright to a publisher and get a lump sum, and then they get all the earnings from publishing it. Well, she sold, I believe, Pride and Prejudice that way, and the publisher just never published it. Just took the copyright and kept it. So she had to buy it back and publish it a different way because there were just so many hurdles to her publishing the books that she wanted to publish. And that's why I say it feels like Amy Heckerling in a way trying to make the movies that she wants to make against this system that's just not interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, two dudes on a podcast are probably not the best people to discuss the plights of women, but that is
Yeah.
Jesus, man. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
And just showing how little things have changed is even more depressing. But
yeah.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
so the thing about writing Clueless, and yeah, I mean, she really put in the work too. I mean, she studied Beverly Hills high school kids. I mean, much like, not exactly like Cameron Crowe did for Fast Times, but she hung around there and got an idea of their speech and learned all the slang. And when she realized that she was essentially writing Emma, I mean, she really leaned into that. And that's part of what the issue with the studio was as well, that I had read, that she was very upfront about it being an Emma adaptation. And in the 90s, anything that struck of being literary or, smart, the studios were like, I don't think we want to talk about that. Like, we should probably just bury that. And she refused. She very much wanted it to be known that she was doing an adaptation of Emma. And she had to fight for that too. So, yeah.
Just an uphill battle all along the way for her. And it really paid off though. I mean, she had success with it, and did that success continue?
No, of course not.
Not really.
Because everything, especially with a female director, it's like you're starting from a clean slate all the time. But yeah, to capture the zeitgeist twice and still not have enough credit in the bank to get a project made is just a crime. So, because Clueless, yeah, unbeknownst to all the executives who didn't really understand what she was capturing, I mean, she really caught on to something. Those are really how those kids spoke in that moment. That is really how those kids behaved. And she captured something that was true, yet foreign to everyone who wasn't actually living in that particular space. So it was fresh, but also of its time at the same time. And she does a really good job of capturing a certain moment in time.
I think it takes the story, and I mean that's the good comparison is that it feels in the novel, because that's how Autumn to Wilde adapted it, and it feels big, like it feels sort of vast and sprawling, because it's in this, like these manors in England, and it's like this whole town or this whole countryside. And Clueless condenses all of it into like one little ecosystem. And I think that does such a great service to the story, because it really like puts a magnifying glass on all of the aspects of it and forces it to be sort of like more interactive, like each of the elements.
Yeah.
And makes it just so relatable and at least for me, a little more understandable, because when I watched Emma, I got it because I watched Clueless, because I understood, who was playing whom and like how those dynamics worked, because I watched Clueless the day before, and I might not have gotten all of the social hierarchy and stuff. And that's just because I'm a dum-dum. Like most people would get it, but in the beginning with the language, the way it was, like it's true to the book. I got a little lost, I have to say. And
no, that's fair. To jump on your point, though, I mean, you're right. It works in two ways. Shrinking it down into a small high school setting. It does that, but what it also does is it shows you how little things have really changed. Like this idea of, the comedies of manners still work because there are always those things that exist. They just exist in different ways. The manners change and the expectations change, but the judgments and the expectation for how you're supposed to behave never really changes. And so it's just a really smart way of by putting it there, showing you how everyone is still expected to follow these social cues of how you're supposed to act. So it works in multiple ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classism just continues to exist basically, and today more than ever that divide is is even greater than it was in 1995. So yeah, it's always going to be there, I think, unfortunately. But just having it put into a modern setting really makes it relatable, even though it's something that's existed forever and still exists. I think seeing that modern template on top of it.
So think about a movie
really
from 30 years
helps.
ago that talks about classism, but also has a debate about whether or not all the oppressed people of the world should be allowed to come to America.
Yeah.
And then specifically talks about Haitians. It's like, holy cow. It's actually pretty shocking.
Haitians.
Haitians, which I don't know if you heard this, was
Yeah.
actually Alicia Silverstone's misreading. That was
Yeah.
her mistake,
Yeah.
that she actually didn't know the word and misread it. And the director, obviously being smart, left it in because she thought that it was a really cute way of establishing the character, and totally worked.
I think that's a great example of the Cher character. She's somebody who is sort of like has her head up her ass a little bit in that she's sort of in her little bubble, but she means well. Like she's not mean. She's not, she wants to help, but she doesn't quite know that the ways she tries to help are more self-serving than
Right.
outward.
So I don't know if you read this part. I was reading something with Amy Heckerling where she talked about how people really took to the Jeff Spicoli character in Fast Times, and everybody has their own theories about why people loved him. But what she took away from it was that what people really liked about Jeff Spicoli was his positivity, like his unshakable positivity about everything. And that's what she thought that really made the character likable. And so when she was writing Cher, that's very much was the idea that Cher was unnervingly, unflappably positive about things, even if she was completely clueless about what was happening or up her own butt, but still in a positive way, trying to be positive and always coming from a place that is a good place.
Yeah, just perhaps a little unself-aware in the way she goes about things. But fun fact about Steven, I looked a lot like Sean Penn when I was young, so my nickname throughout all of school was Spicoli, which is because I had very long hair too. So I'm kind of getting back there now. But yeah, a little traumatic for me to talk about Fast Times because that's how I was known, which is
Understood.
very weird. Yeah. But that's kind of the big change in the film is that Cher goes from this inward like self help to an outward help, and it just kills it at the fundraiser, and that's what you really see as like this beautiful change in her. She's never menacing or anything, and I love that.
And there is one good line that I didn't catch till like the second time I rewatched it, which it was a really wonderful line to drop in where she's talking with her stepbrother / boyfriend, and we'll get into that later. But he says to her, "Do you have any idea what you're talking about?" And she says, "No. Do I sound like I do?" And I love that line. I think that's really, really good because it really does encapsulate that she's trying very hard, but she also has the self-awareness to know that she's kind of bullshitting her way through. So that was a really enlightening line.
It is, because that speaks to, like, I guess, I don't know, maybe there's no real pursuit of like self-enrichment there or like development of the self in any way. It's more about like finding outside ways in like a charming way to serve the self. So that kind of makes sense. Like she needs to put some substance behind how she appears to people. And I think that's what, the Pismo Beach disaster ends up being, is her recognizing that there needs to be more to what she's doing and presenting than what, has been there in the past. So, it's pretty interesting. I mean, there are a lot of really, I don't know if they're complex, but there are a lot of interesting themes and developments throughout the film that are just so relatable in like a social hierarchy or like a high school setting or wherever, like a work setting. They're always going to be, and this of course has that, every high school or college film has that walk down the quad to introduce you to the groups of kids, and this has that, and it just shows you right in that moment who's who and kind of where they stand in the pecking order, and it's just a lot of fun. Just great film overall.
Yeah. So I guess we might as well talk about the cast, the rest of the cast. So I just have to lead by talking about Dan Hedaya, who plays the father. People of our age remember him in just everything. There was a period of time, like the late 80s,
Cheers,
early
mostly.
90s, where he just kind of showed up everywhere. But he started off on Cheers, which is a great character. And he's very
Yeah.
Tony Shalhoub in that way, where he's of undetermined ethnic origin, so he can play just about anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in Cheers he plays an Italian, but he could play a Syrian. He can basically play any ethnicity you need him to. And in this one,
Yeah.
ethnicity of undetermined origin. I have no idea what he's
Right.
supposed to be, but he's great. And the line where he first meets Kai, and the first thing he says is "Get out of my chair." Wonderfully delivered line. It's just
Yeah.
it really just that's a line that's all about delivery. It's great. I love him.
Yeah. And interestingly, they wanted Harvey Keitel for that part, but couldn't afford him. Could you imagine?
You know what? He would have been really good in that part. I could 100% see that.
Yeah, a couple other people in the running too, but I think Dan Hedaya is like across the board in retrospect, who landed in these parts is the right person for the part. I think there were plenty of other people, in auditions for all of these parts. I mean, Paul Rudd even, I believe he actually auditioned for Murray because he didn't realize it was actually a black character. He thought it was a white guy pretending to be black, like Seth Green in Can't Hardly Wait. So he just he auditioned for that. Dave Chappelle auditioned for that. Like he was somebody who was in the running for the Murray part. So a lot of different sliding door scenarios here, but I think where they ended up ultimately is a bit of alchemy because they all work so well together.
Yeah, and especially Donald Faison with Murray was supposed to be a much smaller character, but he was so good in the part that he ended up getting a larger role in the movie just because his chemistry with Stacey Dash and just the way he played the part was so fun that they gave him more lines, which makes sense. I've always liked Donald Faison, so.
And Zach Braff auditioned for the role of Josh, so that would have been the beginning of that bromance that carries on through T-Mobile commercials and the Scrubs reboot today.
That would have been crazy.
That's like 30 years.
Wow. I wonder if they knew each other then.
They must have. I mean, they probably met. Well, who knows? I mean, he didn't get the part, so maybe they didn't meet. But this is a really interesting time because the people in this film, like you have Breckenmeyer, maybe he's the only one now that I think about it, but there's everybody who auditioned for it was like the same people who auditioned for this wave of teen movies in the mid to late 90s with like Peter Facinelli tried to get the role of Josh, as did Seth Green. Like, basically the cast of Can't Hardly Wait all tried to be in this movie. And those are the people you'd think of from that time. And I guess there's just like such a small group of people auditioning for all of these teen movies that were coming out at the time. So it's just really interesting. It's almost like a troupe that ends up in these films. But, some real undiscovered gems in this film too. Like Stacey Dash, for instance, who was doing a real Andrea Zuckerman from 90210. She was 28 when they filmed this, the oldest person on set.
And I think she's the only one to go from the movie to the TV show.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that
That's
says something about her
there
career.
was a TV show.
They ended up becoming the TV show that it originally was supposed to be. But yeah, I think she's the only one that moved over. So let's talk about Brittany Murphy. We haven't brought up Brittany Murphy yet. Because it's hard not to bring her up without, the tragedy of it all, which is pretty sad. But so let me say this to you: when I rewatched it, something hit me, and it became something I couldn't shake from that point on. Don't you feel like Brittany Murphy's Kai is basically just doing an imitation of Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny?
That's so funny you say that because I kept thinking of Natasha Lyonne, but I think you might be closer.
The more that I
Yeah.
watched it, it's like some of the readings of her lines sounded almost exactly like Marissa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
And once I had it there, I
Yeah.
couldn't get rid of it. And not to say that that's not a good person to imitate. She obviously won an Oscar, and not everyone can do it. But yeah, and again, this is a good example where Alicia Silverstone is use the word revelatory in this. I mean, there's something just so sweet and innocent about Kai's character and the way Brittany Murphy plays it, even though she's supposed to be a little more experienced. I assume she's from the East Coast. We have to assume that based on how she talks. And she's got a little bit of an edge to her. But
Jersey, I think.
right. But, her smile is just so innocent and beautiful. And the way she plays that character with a touch of innocence and sweetness to it is what makes that character work. And not become annoying or overbearing.
But it's so funny because she does have like a sweetness and innocence, but from her own accounts, she's far more experienced in the world than any of these women.
Right.
Or
Well,
these
that's
young
what
girls.
I'd said. That you get she's coming from a bit of a harder edge, but she's
Yeah.
still able to portray it as being innocent, which again is kind of a trick. It's the way that it's portrayed.
Yeah, it becomes like a fish out of water story for her, which I think is carried in the Emma film that we're going to talk about. There's that as well, but again, like bringing it to present day just makes it, at least to me, far more impactful because it's more relatable to see it in a setting that you're familiar with, and it just kind of clicks a little more with me. But yeah, she's so great. And it's really weird that we would be doing this the same week that Hayden Panettiere died, because now I'm thinking about like the two of them together. Very strange. But
Yeah, that was sad
Yeah,
to see. And we did I Love You, Beth Cooper, for the pod, and she was really the only good thing in it. So
yeah. Hey,
it's
Paul Rust was pretty good.
He was fine. But yeah, that was really sad to see this week. But the thing about Brittany Murphy is, even the way she passed, though, I mean, she died essentially of pneumonia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which makes it even more sad. I mean, it was like complications from pneumonia, which is terrible. But anyway.
Yeah, really a versatile actor. I mean, the things that she did, she really leaned into comedy and has tremendous comedy chops, but incredible in Girl Interrupted, incredible in a lot of things after this. And yeah, I mean, just a real talent gone too soon, but really stands out in this. In a film full of terrific comedic performances. I mean, she really stands out alongside Alicia Silverstone, who I think does just an incredible job with the comedy of this in a different way. I mean, I think the tones are a little different for each character, but still just very, very good. There's so many people in the cast. Is there anybody else you want to spotlight?
No one other than the guy in the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I've always been obsessed with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones just because there's a guy in the band who does nothing but dance, and I'm just obsessed with that guy.
I brought that up with Laura. I was like, is that guy a second singer, or is he just dancing?
No, he just dances. That's what he's there for. I've been obsessed with that guy forever. I'm just like, that is the job that I always wanted. I just want to get paid to dance on the side. Well,
didn't 311 also have a guy like that who just danced?
Well, I don't know. See, to me, I mean, if you liked hip hop in the 80s, I mean, you're used to seeing that, where there used to be guys in hip hop crews that would just stand on stage. I mean, Public Enemy was good for that, where there were those two guys that just stood there. They were considered like bodyguards of Public Enemy. They didn't do anything but stand there and look menacing.
Yeah, the S1Ws.
Yeah, but there's a history of like people in hip hop groups just standing around. One time I saw the Wu-Tang Clan, there were like 36 people on stage. I don't even know who the hell half of them were. But having a specific guy on stage just to dance, I mean, that's fun.
Basically, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s role with Lionel Richie, right?
Yes. Yeah. Good. You nailed it. There you go.
Fun fact about the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones scene. They did not want to do this movie, but they had tax issues, quote unquote, and they needed a paycheck. Not happy about filming indoors, so they got super drunk before filming. Added to the fact that the day they shot it, across the street was the courthouse where the OJ trial was happening. So that's kind of like the world they were in on that day. Drunk in a hot warehouse while the OJ trial was happening across the street. And in tax trouble. So
that's fun. We didn't mention the character, the actor who plays Christian either. In we were talking about the cast. Who's good? I mean, you're supposed to do, but it leads to my other favorite line in the movie. Well, my two favorite other Dan Hedaya lines, which are one where he says, "Sammy Davis Jr. dying in the Rat Pack did not leave an opening." like that line's great. But the other thing is he says that he has a gun and a shovel, and he's like, "I doubt anyone would miss you." It's just just a thrown away line. You're like, that's kind of great. I don't know.
And I love the way Paul Rudd's character Josh refers to Christian as the ring-a-ding kid.
Yeah. So speaking of this, I guess now that I'm old, there are things that I see in this movie that I did not see when I was younger. The first one being when she invites Christian over and she says that something has to be baking, and then when he comes in and it's burning, she opens up the oven and obviously there's smoke coming out. She never turns the oven off. They walk away. That house is going to burn to the ground. I'm not sure what. Yeah. That's a serious fire hazard. So something I only notice now that I'm a parent of absent-minded kids. But the other thing, and we're going to go to Emma, and Emma in the story is 21. I know you had to put it in high school, but making Cher 15, because they mentioned that she's 15, she has an April birthday, that she's going to be 16. Right. And we don't know exactly how old Josh is, but he's in college, so he's at least 18. But it seemed like he's a little older than that.
Yeah.
That's a little
kind
creepy.
Problematic.
And I guess it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's a romantic comedy, the way it's set up, but that plays a little creepier than it used to. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I think for everybody who had a problem with the age discrepancy in Licorice Pizza, they need to check themselves and look at Clueless, because the older man feels a little more menacing to me. And I think she's 16 by the end because she takes her driver's test and she could get her license. But still, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming like 20 for Paul Rudd, 19, 20. And yeah, I'm sure there's discourse online about it, that it doesn't sit right. I don't know. I was a little freaked out by it.
I just clocked it. I don't remember clocking it before, so it jumped out at me this time. I was like, wait a second. I was trying to do the math. I'm like, that's yeah, okay.
Yeah, a little weird, I have to say. I gotta mention that Radiohead has two songs in this that are played over and over again: My Iron Lung and Fake Plastic Trees. And there's so many references to Josh being like a grunge guy and very much of that time. And, he reads Nietzsche by the pool. Like Laura said, that's me when I was that age, which is probably true. But just weird to hear Radiohead songs over and over again in this, I think.
Well, again, Amy Heckerling fought for the soundtrack in this movie as well, that she knew that it should be music of the era, that they wanted more pop-oriented stuff, and she knew that it should lean more towards this. I mean, hell, the Counting Crow song is an unreleased Counting Crow song from a radio show. So, she went deep. That's a deep cut, not on any record. So she knew the vibe she was looking for. And again, a good job of setting the tone of the movie.
Yeah, the soundtrack is such an important part. It feels very much of like Fast Times, the way the music in Fast Times is like put in to be such an important part of it. Paul Rudd got robbed when he was leaving the set while filming this, it much in the way that Cher was robbed when Elton kicked her out of the car, or she left Elton's car. So Paul Rudd like almost murdered. Like the guy shot a gun next to his head to show him it was a real gun.
Oh,
People came to his rescue, but they stole his backpack, which had the Clueless script in it. So somebody got to take home the script to Clueless as a bounty for a robbery. Very, very weird moment. And then actually, it's kind of funny because the guy who was originally hired to be that mugger who robbed Cher, his agent told Scott Rudin, the producer, that he couldn't do it because he was trying to run up getting a little more money for him. So Scott Rudin's like, cool, you're fired. And called somebody else to come down on the day to do the scene. So the guy who's in the film was like called that day to do it. And should they have just gotten the guy who robbed Paul Rudd? I mean, that would have been like a nice little.
I mean, he
little
did already
bonus
have the
for that
script.
guy,
I mean, he knew the lines.
Yeah, exactly. So those are some fun tidbits about it. I feel like there's a lot more to say about this, but for the sake of time, I want to move on to Emma and then really compare the two because I think that's where the interesting stuff is going to lie. So, anything else you want to mention before we move on?
No, I think we're ready to move on.
All right. Well, with that in mind, let's move on to 2020's Emma from Autumn to Wilde. Same story, different setting, basically. So I like when we do these episodes because well, this one's very different actually, because I don't think we've ever done like a period piece versus a contemporary version of it. But like I said, I think that this feels contemporary to me. What was your takeaway from watching this version of the story?
Okay, so let's get our biases on the
Hated it?
table right out of the gate.
Okay.
I really dislike most period things. I really, really dislike
Yeah.
comedies of manners, like old period pieces about manners. I just find that whole stunted 19th century England thing, it really just frustrates me. Maybe it's just my natural classism coming out, my rejection of classism and all that kind of stuff. It just rears up in me, and I get real hostile watching these people in frumpy clothes, like frocks and stuff, trying to act proper. It just drives me insane. So putting that on the table, the first time I watched this, because I hadn't seen it before, I watched it once. And in the first 25 minutes, I thought my eyeballs were going to fall out of my head. I just felt bored to tears. Because I just found watching that dude get dressed. I found it to be mind numbing, and just people walking around, flowers and stuff. It brought out some angry feelings in me. However, I decided to watch it a second time because once I got past all my initial biases, I went back and watched it a second time and found a lot more in it to like the second time that I watched it. Once I gave into what it was, and understanding that it was not going to be what I want it
Clueless.
to be. Right.
Yeah.
And once I accepted it for what it was, I found a lot more humor in it, and I found it a lot more entertaining the second time.
Good. See, you give it a chance. You go in with an open mind and
I
pleasantly
tried.
surprised. I very much feel the same way about period pieces. Although I'm trying to be more open to them, I do have difficulty with them. And I find for me, a problem has always been like costuming and set design. But I'm really like leaning more into that and embracing it. And what I've found, at least with this, and I think with most period pieces, God, I sound like such a stupid idiot, but like the language throws me off.
That's
like,
okay. I was going to say to you that part of my bias as well, and I'll freely admit this too, I think comes from my being American.
Yeah.
That like the Americanness beat into me, like immediately rejects like that stunted British thing. I always feel like, isn't this what we tried to get away from? Like, I don't, like, I just reject it wholeheartedly. Maybe like all the teachings from when I was a kid of just being like American being beaten into me. The minute I see stuff like that, I just reject it wholeheartedly. It's
Yeah.
almost like a visceral reaction. It's like,
Yeah,
I
it's your
don't care about
instinct.
this stuff. I'm American. So I just like push it away, which I can say that, yeah, it makes me sound dumb in a way, but that's the truth. That's how we process these things. And so it's taken me a long time to try to push past it and try to see it for what it is and accept it for what is being given to me.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is for me too. Interestingly, though, I have a similar reaction to sort of like lazy American, like English language. So some of the stuff in Clueless sort of irks me as well. But because it's contemporary and it's in America, it sounds more like it works better for my ears, I guess. And what at first with Emma, that was a big hurdle for me, but once I kind of settled into it, yeah, I found it to be a super enjoyable film. I had the opportunity to tour some castles and manors a few years back over in England,
Ooh,
so
look at you touring castles and manors.
so I really got a new appreciation for them, and just like the uh sort of garishness of them, because they're so over the top and ridiculous, but I love seeing them.
So hang on one second. I just have to say this. At the beginning, when we're being introduced to Knightley, and they show him get dressed and he walks through the house as he's leaving
Hmm.
to go. He walks through this one room, and my first thought was, holy crap, that's what the White House looks like now.
Yeah.
It had
Yeah.
all the gold fixtures on the wall, and the wall was white. It looked exactly like the White House. I was kind of amazed and horrified at the same time.
Yeah, but it's probably real gold, whereas they pointed out that some of the stuff in the White House is like spray painted Home Depot products.
That is true. Yes.
So, yeah, American Versailles. That's what we have now, or we're on our way to it. But yeah, I mean those settings really used to turn me off, but now I've really grown to appreciate them. And what I always find interesting, I mean, this is like such a minute thing that has nothing to do with anything, but the color in some of these places is not what I associate with 18th century stuff. And so if you're seeing like what looks like South Beach in Miami in these rooms with like 100 paintings on the wall, that kind of perks me up a little bit. I find it to be really interesting.
Yeah,
and it's authentic.
There was one room that there was for best I can describe it as like a pale green, like
Mhm.
a lime
Like a
green
mint.
almost. Yeah. I really like that wall color. I thought,
Yeah.
wow, if I ever get a mansion, I'm gonna paint it that color.
But you wouldn't like necessarily associate that with an English manor in the 1800s, right?
That's possibly true.
Or the 1700s. But I used to work at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and they had like a recreation of one of those rooms, and it was one of those colors. So I did know that happened, but I actually never thought that was like a real thing. That what they were recreating was an actual room with these colors in it. I cannot help but feel like an idiot right
So
now.
while
saying
we're
that.
off on tangents talking about this movie, her father, one of his main things is he's obsessed with drafts.
So funny.
And I have to say, I had a laugh because, yeah, this is 100% relatable for me. This is my first house. My first house had nothing but drafts in it, and I spent the entire winter just with like a caulk gun sitting in a chair, and I'd pull a caulk gun out and was just caulking holes everywhere I felt a draft. Like I was obsessed with it. It became, I became like a lunatic about trying to track drafts in my house. So that was 100% relatable. See, manor people are just like us.
If only you had servants to bring you a
I'll say.
screen.
I needed
sort
someone
of,
to bring me a screen because that it'd drive me insane. Plastic in
almost
windows.
every scene. Yeah. That's one of the things I loved about this is the humor in it is so quirky and dry, and I think that brings it to more of like a present day thing that's relatable is putting that humor in it. And I kind of love that about it. Like that's a great thing by Eleanor Canton, the screenwriter.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the thing that came in better the second time I watched it, because when you were watching it fresh, yeah, I think I was distracted by all the pomp and circumstance, and in some ways that can be a little distracting. And so it took me a minute to find that bone dry humor that once you catch it, you find it really is threaded throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fun. And I know that the book Emma is humorous too. I don't know how similar, like what Eleanor Canton put in that makes it different from the book, but I really love those little, like the tone of it because of that humor is it feels contemporary. I mean, maybe that's why these books are made over and over again into film and TV adaptations, is because the way the story's told is kind of timeless in a way, like the tone of it. So, yeah, I had a good time with this, better than I thought I would. As open as I'm trying to be to period pieces, they're still not the thing I'm going to go to on a Saturday night if I want to watch something.
Yeah, but see, so even in my old literature stuff, I'm going to take a Little Women over an Emma any day. Because even though something like Little Women still takes place in a slightly richer vein, it's not that rich. It is characters that are actually trying to work and kind of deal with real life, lives that feel a little bit similar to ours in even a small way. So there's just something a little more relatable to it. So I'd take a Little Women over an Emma, every day. But like I said, I ended up enjoying this a little more, definitely more than I expected to.
I like the portrayal of Emma from Anya Taylor-Joy. I think it's different. I mean, we're not comparing them yet, but it feels like there's an interiority to Emma's journey here that might not be as open with Cher. And maybe that's because in this period, women can't be as expressive. Nobody can, men or women, it can't be as expressive with their feelings. And so you get a sense that there's like more of a mechanism working inside, whereas in Clueless, you're kind of seeing Cher go through all this stuff. And there's a little bit of that there, but
well, I was going to say the other thing too, and maybe you disagree with me, but the thing about her Emma is there's also an edge to it. There's an edge and a little bit of a meanness to the character that she's, everybody talks about her goodness. And I think in some ways it's mentioned a lot because you're supposed to notice that everyone keeps talking about her goodness. But what you see reflected is that she's got a very much a jealous streak. She's a little bit nasty. She's a little bit dismissive. And I think you're supposed to clock that in relation to how people keep constantly talking about her, because she's really not that. And it takes her the entirety of the movie to almost become what people keep saying that she is. But she never really was.
That's why I think Anya Taylor-Joy is such a good fit here, because you mentioned Lucky earlier, and there's something about her that has like an edge in all of her performances and a little bit of attitude to them. Like it's a very confident acting style. And you really get that in this Emma portrayal, even though I think this is a different character than like 2015, she's in The Witch. That's the thing that kind of launches her. And there's a bit of that there, I guess, especially toward the end of the film, but it's not yet as established as it seems to be here and in the Queen's Gambit and going forward.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think the Queen's Gambit is what put her on the map, and that very much has that edge to it. So, that 100% shows everything that she can do. Because as someone who did not watch The Witch when it came out, I didn't know who she was till I saw the Queen's Gambit, and I was like, wow, she's something.
So you represent the everyman, and I represent the indie world. So
that is very. That's why I had to
her.
jump in. I had to jump in and just clarify. There's two different paths here that you clock Anya Taylor-Joy.
But in the film world, her in The Witch was a small film, first film from Robert Eggers. It was a performance that was very early in her career, and people took note of it. Maybe it wasn't a Netflix TV show. And that's something interesting to talk about, because the Queen's Gambit, really it's a tale of two paths for her in 2020. Whereas this comes out in February, right at the beginning of COVID. And it does get seen by and large, but it's a period piece set in the 18th century. Queen's Gambit, set I believe in the 50s, comes out as a streamer in the same year during COVID and just explodes. So it's a really interesting year for her in just like the differences between these two projects, which I find very interesting. And that COVID of it all really, like, it will make or break you in 2020 depending on where your art is shown. So just kind of really fascinating. And yeah, I'm sure the Queen's Gambit really put her on the map because everybody was like forced to stay home and watch that. Like, it really just kind of set her off.
It was great. I mean, the two things for me from the pandemic, I mean, well, everybody watched Tiger King, but the two things that stay with me most from that period of time are the Queen's Gambit and Station 11 that was on HBO. Like, those two things I found were fantastic. Two of the best things I watched.
I really wish there were more Station 11. I really loved that show. It was so good. Yeah. And I think there are sequels to the novel. Emily St. John Mandel, I think is her name. And I know she made other novels in that series. So maybe we'll see it someday. I don't know. But yeah, that was very good. Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy, just incredible. Really carrying this film in a way that Alicia Silverstone doesn't have to, because the ensemble feels a little more muted than, I guess, because of the time they're representing, but she is kind of front and center with less support, I think, than Alicia Silverstone has, and really forces her to step up and show you without like telling you, because you couldn't really do it in that time, a little bit more of what's working inside of her. And she just does such a great job. You mentioned Mia Goth, who I was so happy to see in this film. I really, really love her. Such an indie darling, and is in a lot of films that I've really loved over the past like 10 years. So it's a little strange to see her in this role, but I think she does such a good job, which speaks to her versatility.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to seeing her play confident characters, and she's really quite not immature, but inexperienced in this. And she's actually really good at portraying that. I did say one thing, and this is totally frivolous, and I know it's going to sound stupid, but Mia Goth's lack of eyebrows I found a little distracting. Are they just really light, or does she actually have no eyebrows? I can't tell. I don't know. I'm not judging someone's lack of eyebrows, but I found it a bit distracting.
Yeah, it definitely jumps out, but I think they're really light. I don't know. I mean, she never has darker eyebrows as far as I can remember. Maybe in Maxine, I think they might draw them on because she's in film, but yeah, I don't know. But what's interesting is I see her as, like, I'm a little afraid of her, honestly. If I met her in person, I'd be a little afraid of her, because the characters she usually plays are aggressive and kind of menacing. So to see her in this role was really interesting, because it kind of goes in the other direction, where she's just this innocent, sweet, kind of unknowing young woman. And it was really fun to watch her in this, because I had never seen her in something like this.
Hey, so you said you were confused by some of the things in this movie at the beginning. So something I'm still a little confused about, I'll just ask it. You don't have to answer it because it's not that big of a deal. But so her character is part of a group of other girls. They all wear those red cloaks and they live in a boarding house, I guess. I don't understand what that is. Is that where people like it's a boarding school for girls without parents, or like what is it, and how is it connected to Emma? I don't really understand that whole thing. I just went with it.
I think it's like an orphanage in a way, because at the end, like her big joyous thing is that her father writes her a letter and like reveals himself to her. I think much in the way Cher kind of takes on Kai as like not a charity case, but like a project to help the less fortunate. That's, the same thing that's happening here. So I would assume these women who don't have parents
Right.
are
So you
looked
clocked it
down
as an
upon.
orphanage type of thing, or like a boarding school.
That's what I,
Yeah. That was
yeah,
like my assumption. I just wasn't sure.
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm overlaying it with Clueless, and that lines up as like a class thing, and that's what happened in Clueless. Um, God, I'm telling you, I just feel like an idiot talking about this, but uh, I I want to talk about really quickly the cinematography here, and it's it's shot by Christopher Blauvit, who works with Kelly Reichardt a lot, who's a director I absolutely love. He shot Bling Ring, the Sofia Coppola film, mid '90s Jonah Hill's film, May December, the Todd Haynes film. Um, but he does such a great job here highlighting the set design and the costume design. And I think that's something that carries over from Clueless, which was shot by Bill Pope, who works with the Wachowskis. He shot all of the Matrix films, works with Sam Raimi a lot. I think Clueless, the costume design was so like candy coated, and Bill Pope makes that movie look like a 90s magazine to me, the way all of the fashion is highlighted. And I think here Blauvit does a similar job, but in a different way, because it's more about the settings and the placement of these costumes in the setting, because it's just such an expansive world in these manners. And I just wanted to point that out because I think both of these films are absolutely gorgeous to look at for ways that are similar in some capacity, but also have their own takes on what they're shooting. And a big thing for me watching Emma was just like watching a candy store. Like it just looked so beautiful and vivid.
Yeah. So Autumn de Wilde, from what I read, her main thing is she's a photographer. That's and I think you can see that in the way certain things are framed in this picture as well. So Emma's the only movie she ever directed. Well, she directed a short film, but she mostly directs. It looks like she's the personal video director for Florence and the Machine. That seems to be the majority of the things that she's done. I don't quite know how that is. I don't know the connection there, but yeah.
She's I kind of see her as an extension or like the junior class from if the graduating class of 90s directors of music videos like Spike Jonze and Pellington and Romanek and Fincher, really. She's kind of that next wave. And she directed a ton of stuff that's in the indie world, like Elliott Smith's Son of Sam video, Kath by Death Cab for Cutie, a lot of Beck stuff. So she's really like this indie director in sort of the last gasp of music videos, I think, for a while there in the 2000s. And that aesthetic is really what shows up on this in this film is I mean, she's not the cinematographer, but I know that she has a say over everything, and it feels a lot like a music video a lot of the time. As does Clueless, but in a different era. So yeah, it's such a visual style, and while Clueless takes the content of Emma and brings it forward into the present day, I think what she does here is add, even though it's still set in that period, I think she adds a contemporary aesthetic to that time. And that's kind of what I was saying with Marie Antoinette feeling like a comparison to it, is that it feels contemporary, even though it's not, or it's not supposed to be. And when you have such a visual director, I think that's what's going to come up, and just like a real feast for the eyes to watch this film. And that's a big part of why I enjoyed it so much. Let's talk about some of the other cast. We have a lot of heavy hitters from like the hot boys of today in Callum Turner and Josh O'Connor. So really, and Johnny Flynn too, who I had to say I'm not that familiar with, but he seems like probably a
Yes,
British,
Johnny Flynn. What I
you
don't
know,
think I know him
guy of
from
today.
is he
Like
was in
Callum.
The Outfit a couple of years ago, which was great. I think that's a bit of an underrated movie. But other than that, yeah, I don't really know him from anything.
Seems to be in a lot of British stuff, and I don't. It's not a lot of things that I watch, so I wouldn't know him from anything. But he's great in it. I think Callum Turner is surprisingly great. I never find him to be the most engaging actor, but he's fine in this role as Churchill, as Frank Churchill. So I didn't mind watching him. I will say Josh O'Connor, I don't know what he's doing in this film, but he is chewing the scenery like crazy. It's very
Yeah.
strange to watch.
And I kind of love his choices, and especially how he uses his hands in certain scenes. Like his hands are always doing weird
Yeah.
things. Like, yeah, I don't know what is going on, but it's fun. He must have had a lot of fun playing this character.
It's weird because I think about he's a minister in this film, and I think about who, he played that same character, not the same character, but a same occupation in Wake Up Dead Man, the Ryan Johnson film earlier this year. And when you compare those two performances, holy moly, it's like quite a difference. He's grown exponentially as an actor in 6 years.
I'll say.
Bill Nighy, you have to mention him as Mr. Woodhouse. In a great comp to Dan Hedaya in the American versus British representations of Mr. Woodhouse. I think they could not represent their countries any better with who plays the fathers of these films. Really, really great. Um, a lot of British people I don't necessarily know, but anybody else who jumped out at you as
it's interesting
being...
you say that, because what I found is these were a lot of actors that I recognized and was trying to figure out what I recognized them from, but I've seen most of these people in other things, like her sister. The actress who plays her sister was in a TV show called Department Q, which I watched on Netflix, which was really good, and she was really good in it. And like Miranda Hart, who plays Miss Bates, like I mean, I know I've seen her in things. I was trying to just remember where I've seen these people, but they're just these British actors that pop up in a lot of stuff where you don't even necessarily clock their names, but you know that you know them from things.
Yeah.
Like the actor that played Miss Taylor is someone I've definitely seen in stuff like recently. Was trying to think of where. And I said I haven't looked it up, so like I don't even remember. But yeah, just people that I know by their face, but they've never been the star of anything, so I don't really know them that well.
Yeah, the only person I recognized was Rupert Graves, who plays Mr. Weston, and I couldn't remember like you where I saw him, but I remember that he was in V for Vendetta, like as the sort of mouthpiece guy, and that's
Right.
the only thing I could
You know what
remember him from. But
I think I remember the person. Okay, her name is Gemma Whalen. She's the character that played Miss Taylor. She was in Game of Thrones. That was where I saw her.
okay,
She was a character in Game
yeah,
of
I've never
Thrones.
seen that.
So yeah, a lot of these
Okay.
people, I bet you like half these people I've seen in Game of Thrones, because that had like every British actor imaginable was on that show. So that's probably what it is. A lot of these people I saw in that show.
That's why I don't recognize any of them because
Yep.
I've never watched Game of Thrones.
That would do it.
So I'm out in the cold here. But uh, since you mentioned Miss Bates, we should probably talk about the story a little more and how it aligns with Clueless. But there's this scene where Emma just really shows who she is to Miss Bates and completely insults her, and that's not a scene that you have in Clueless. But it's really like the outward manifestation of all of the mechanisms that Emma is going through in this film. And I think that's such a powerful scene. And you mentioned Miranda Hart as Miss Bates, and she's so good there. I mean, she's so good throughout the film, but in that moment, she is just like mortally wounded, and you see it, and you see Emma's kind of like regret almost immediately, because the whole party just goes flat and is silent. But then when Knightley confronts her in the carriage, you really get to see Anya Taylor-Joy have this moment of clarity about who she's become and what she's been doing, and
Well,
it's so
also,
powerful.
he's the only person that would confront her and really call her out on this straight
Yeah,
to her face, which is you know what she needs, and that's what he acts as. Which, by
right.
the way, I'm not sure if you've been in a situation where you've said something that's caused an entire room to go quiet, but I've definitely been in that situation, so that felt fair. There definitely were
I
days in
never
my
say
life where I used to
anything in a
fly
room.
off at the mouth and would say something wholly inappropriate in quiet room.
Well,
Anyway,
that's why we have a podcast.
yeah, I've learned as I've gotten older, just not to say everything that pops into your head.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I don't really say anything in a room full of people, so because I assume that's what's going to happen. Everything I say will be like what Emma does in that moment, if I let my thoughts out. So I get it. Uh, do we want to talk about anything else here? I mean, we kind of grazed over this, but it feels like, you know,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know. I think we
it's
kind of know
Emma.
where we're
I mean,
both
it's
going.
not. Let's go too deep into it. Yeah, I think it's a well presented adaptation. I just think the fact that we both enjoyed it as people who don't like period movies says a lot about its charms.
Yeah, I agree. I found it to be a lot more interesting and entertaining than I expected it to be. So yeah, a thumbs up for it for me for sure, which I didn't expect to give it. But why don't we move on to our head-to-head comparison and figure out which one is actually better here? So they're the same story told in different times, so it's going to be tricky to kind of compare them in the same way that we normally do. I guess which one tells the story of Emma better is the main question. And I don't know if you can really decide that.
Whew. Well, I mean, which one tells the story of
We are
Emma
two
better? I
people
mean,
who
Emma
haven't read
obvious.
Emma.
Yeah. Well, Emma obviously tells the story of Emma better because it's the one with Emma in it. So I'm gonna have to go with that one just by default.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, as someone who hasn't read Emma or doesn't remember reading it, if I'd read it in school, I can't really intelligently say that I think it portrays Emma better. I think I'm going to recuse myself on this one because I don't think I can
Yeah, we're gonna mark
accurately,
it
like
an
in an
NA
informed
as
way.
just a not applicable to us. We'll have someone else weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Emma story set in the time of Emma using the same language as Emma feels like it's a more accurate representation of what Jane Austen did. But bringing it to modern day, I think takes a lot of ingenuity and to do it in the way that Amy Heckerling did to make it so not one for one, but to tell that story in the way that she does to contemporize it and make it still feel like Emma is
Yeah,
quite a feat of work.
yeah,
So
and have it pay off in a similar
even though
way.
I've recused myself, I feel like that.
Yeah, weigh in anyway. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the payoff is similar. But what I do love, having seen Emma now, is Emma obviously ends with the wedding of Emma and Knightley. But in Clueless, they give you the wedding, and then she's like, "Are you crazy? I'm only 16." Like it references that's what you would expect to happen, and I now find that funnier because I get it. I
Yeah,
didn't realize that Emma actually ends with a wedding. So
right. Yeah, watching Emma it is almost like a companion piece to Clueless for me, which again, I wish I were smarter and more cultured and appreciated Emma for Emma, but it's like it just helps me understand Clueless better because I'm a dumb American. Uh, what about characters here? Which one do you think is the better characters?
I mean, Clueless has better characters, and again, maybe this is our American bias, but I'm not even sure that that's true. Other than Josh O'Connor, who's doing some fun things, all the characters in Clueless are just really well drawn and enjoyable in their own ways. So I mean, I always look at it in terms of this: how many characters pull focus from the main character? And you mentioned this, that Emma is really Emma, and Knightley kind of is second billing, but everyone else is kind of peripheral. Whereas Clueless feels much more like an ensemble. So I feel like Clueless wins.
I think having it in that condensed space allows it to open the aperture a little bit and focus on those people around Cher to make it more of that ensemble that you're talking about. And yeah, it's hard to, I think contemporary or classic, whatever. I think Clueless, because there are so many more fleshed out characters, even though I would argue that they're not all that fleshed out. I think most of them are relative caricatures of what those types of people are expected to be, like a stoner skateboarder or Murray's character. But I do think that it's interesting because you almost have a one for one, not completely, but when you can compare Cher versus Emma, Knightley versus Josh, and so on, it really gives you like a full spectrum from which to cast your vote. So yeah, I think this is probably the most informed answer we can give in this question, is because we have one for one across the board, and it makes it more clear that Clueless, I think, has the better characters. Uh, yeah, I threw a curveball last week and said which one handles the Throwdown theme better, but I mean, we kind of talked about that with the story effectiveness, because it's the theme is Emma, so I don't think we can really we need to even get into that. But cultural staying power, I think this is a pretty obvious one. Clueless
Well,
is
so this is
monumental.
hard because obviously Clueless has its own staying power on its own, but are we judging the 2020 adaptation of Emma staying power, or Emma itself? Because if it's just Emma, then Emma wins in a way. But
Well, I think we
yeah,
have to judge the movie.
then obviously there's a clear winner.
Yeah, Clueless, I think, I mean, it spawned a short-lived television show. It really,
Well, it almost
it
spawned a
was,
sequel, which they thought which was going to happen last year until it got
right,
killed.
right.
But they were going to bring it back. So, I mean, that alone proves that it's still in the zeitgeist. Although the fact that it didn't get made proves that maybe it's not quite as strong as we thought. But
No, but the fact that it's still talked about is, I think, and it almost added like that California speak to the lexicon in a way. Like it almost invented some of the things that would carry forward, into things that we still say today. So, which I find a little irritating, but you can't argue that it's still there. I think Emma, the film, it's young. Maybe it will have more of a lasting impact down the road, but for now, I think it's undeniable that Clueless is the real winner here, because there's just so much about it. I mean, it online you can see Clueless all the time. And I think it spawned so many things after it that are either a direct or indirect reference to it. I think about Mean Girls, and like some of the language in that feels like directly descended from Clueless, and
yeah, that's a good point.
so many other things. If you're talking about Jane Austen and Emma, I mean, remake after remake after remake of these books. So Jane Austen's really the winner in this question, I think.
I'll say.
Well, that's it for our head to head. It was pretty brief this time, but let's move on to our 5 questions. I think these are all going to be pretty easy except for one, and I think you know which one that's going to be.
Yeah.
Which film is more rewatchable?
Yeah, I mean, Clueless is more rewatchable.
Right, hands down. Even though you watched Emma twice,
I did, and I liked it more the second time. That's totally true. But yeah, we're still who we are.
Kind of
we're
undeniable.
gonna watch Clueless more.
I might pick up Clueless on Blu-ray. I don't know if I would pick up Emma. I actually might. I don't know if I'd ever watch it, but it's nice to have it there because, like I said, I really did enjoy it more than I thought I would, and it might be worth having on my shelf. Would you want to hang out with anybody from these films?
Ooh. I mean, it probably is a reflection of me that I would probably want to hang out with Josh more than anybody else. But that may be more of a negative knock on me than anything else. But yeah, probably Josh.
I mean, according to Laura, I was Josh around this time. So
well, then
he's
my
guy.
answer is obvious. I am already hanging out with Josh. So there you go.
You're already doing it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I would want to hang out with Cher. I think Cher is awesome.
Yeah, that's fair. And to be honest, I like, I'm drawing a blank on Breckenmeyer's character.
Travis Birkenstock.
Travis. Yeah, Travis Birkenstock. I could see myself hanging out with Travis Birkenstock. That's fair.
Hung out with a lot of Travis Birkenstocks in my high school days. That's for sure.
Oh, real quick, just as we're mentioning him, something I forgot to mention, which I noticed. Starbucks makes an appearance at the end of this movie at Josh's skate thing, and I definitely didn't clock that in 1995 because I would have no idea what Starbucks even was. So that was just a fascinating little thing there, that Starbucks was already percolating in rich parts of California, but had in no way come out here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a time capsule to see it in this because, like you, I saw it and I was like, really? I can't even remember when Starbucks came to be in Pennsylvania where I was living, but it certainly wasn't 1995. I know that. Is this a career peak or valley for anybody involved?
Oh, yikes. Would it be, I'd hate to say that it's a career peak for Alicia Silverstone, but in some ways it almost
close
is.
to it, I think. Yeah.
I mean, not even for popularity, but I don't know if she's ever been as good in a part as she was in this part. And possibly Stacey Dash, honestly. I mean, what do we know Stacey Dash from? I know her from Mo Money and this. And then after that, not so much. So it's possible this is a career peak for her as well.
I know her from being like a big conservative talking head.
Yeah. Was it a career peak for Amy Heckerling? It might be. I hate to say as well that this was kind of, I mean, this was her project. She wrote and directed it. She finally had the control that she wanted. She made a movie that was really successful and then never really got the chance to make another chance to something like this again. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sad to say, but 2012's Vamps with Alicia Silverstone and Kristen Ritter was not Clueless. All right. Here we go. Which film is Steven Spielberg directing?
So at first I thought this was obviously an easy answer. I mean, my gut reaction immediately was Emma. Because Clueless feels so much of Amy Heckerling's DNA that I feel like she's the only one that can really direct it. But I mean, Spielberg loves directing movies with kids. And this is kid adjacent. So could he direct Clueless? I don't think it would be as good, but now I'm actually leaning towards the fact that I think he probably would do better directing Clueless because he doesn't do period pieces.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was thinking about the period aspect of it all, and Scorsese now he would go Emma, but
right.
Yeah, I think Spielberg. You're right. It's probably going to be Clueless. All right. Would either film be better if you swapped lead actors?
That is an interesting question. And I'd say no.
Yeah, right.
It's definitely no. I think that both of these movies are cast really, really well. And you couldn't see any of the American actors pulling off the Britishness of Emma. So.
Right. Speaking of casting, I should mention that most of Clueless was cast when this was originally at Fox, and then it went into turnaround and ended up at Paramount, I think. But because much of it was cast, when it went to the other studio to have casting finished, that original casting director had to work for free because she'd already been paid. And then she kind of like made a big deal about that, and then they brought in another casting director to finish the job. But yeah, kind of shady Hollywood workings. Not cool. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Alicia Silverstone is so tailored to Cher, and I think Anya Taylor-Joy is so tailored to Emma. And I'd be curious now to see Gwyneth Paltrow's Emma. Gwyneth Paltrow, by the way, also in the running to play Cher, but turned it down. So it would be interesting to see that a year later. But I'd like to see who does Emma better. So yeah, I'm with you. They are cast perfectly. All right, we have our answers. Let's go on to the online polling results. Not a lot of votes this week, which I was surprised by. Which one do you think won?
Pretty sure Clueless won.
In a blowout of epic proportion, 48-4, Clueless takes the cake over Emma this week. Kind of not that surprising because I don't know who has watched Emma.
I would love to know the 4 people that voted for Emma.
Yeah, I can tell you if I go back and look. But I think, COVID might have had something to do with that, maybe. I don't know. But, or it's Emma set in, the 18th century. Anyway, the people of the internet say Clueless is our winner this week. What say you? Who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Clueless. Because again, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked Emma. But I was really surprised because I didn't remember loving Clueless all that much at how enjoyable I found it now.
Yeah. I'm in the same camp. I think we're unanimous. I enjoyed Emma much more than I thought I would, but Clueless, such a gem. I think it's really, I wouldn't call it a generational film or anything, but I think it's a very important film at a time when Pulp Fiction had come out the year before and things were getting dark and like crime heavy, and you have Clueless in at the beginning of that, which is like kind of an antidote to the Tarantino filmmaking. So Clueless, just a real delight to watch, especially Alicia Silverstone. So that's our winner for this week. It's Clueless, almost unanimously according to the internet, because not too many people voted for Emma. But yeah, both good films. I recommend watching them. Watch them back to back and get the same experience we had, which was an interesting one. That's it for this week. Let's talk about next week.
Talk about a sharp turn.
We are taking it back to basics. We've been blessed with a new Jason Statham film, Mutiny, which hits theaters and apparently Amazon Prime for 2 hours. Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm really upset that I missed it.
In theaters, but somebody put it on Amazon Prime mistakenly. But it's in theaters right now. Our guy's on a boat, so it seems like there's an obvious choice for a throwdown here. That's right. Next week, 2026's Mutiny is going to go up against 1992's Under Siege, directed by Andrew Davis. That one has a stellar cast, including Steven Seagal, Tommy Lee Jones, Gary Busey, and of course, Erica Eleniak. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking about the birthday cake scene, I guess. So do join us for that. And in the meantime, follow us on social media. We are at Movie Throwdown Pod. Cast your vote. We're going to throw up some polls. What do you think is better, Mutiny or Under Siege? You're probably going to go Under Siege because you haven't seen Mutiny yet, but trust me, I've seen it. It's a lot of fun. But do join us for that. Mutiny versus Under Siege next week, and we will see you then. So long.